This video will provide an overview of the volume of the Banshin termed Seishin, translated to mean the correct mind. This volume is placed at the beginning of the Banshin, for as is asserted by Fujibayashi Yasutake, the author of the text, the art of ninjutsu is tinged with techniques commonly associated with the criminally minded, such as thievery and arson. He states that in order to avoid the risk of promoting criminality, the principles of the correct mind are regarded first in the text and are to be taken seriously by any student following the path of a shinobi. One could surmise from Sensei Yasutake's admonition that the distinction between a ninja and a criminal is made apparent by the essential mindset and moral principles a shinobi is to adhere to, such as loyalty, benevolence, and righteousness. Therefore, it seems apparent that the essence of ninjutsu is not to be found in arts of trickery, deception, and subterfuge, but rather the guiding principles of Seishin comprises the heart of what it means to be a ninja. Sensei Yasutake writes that the novice should use the volume of Seishin as a lead, keeping its traditions close to one's heart even while resting and sleeping. If this is done with diligence and with an eye transfixed on loyalty, the student will develop fearlessness and naturally come to know what a correct mind means. Furthermore, Sensei Yasutake affirms that if a student of ninjutsu masters the correct mind, then a soft and weak person will become hard and strong, an evil-minded person will become loyal, and a stupid person will become wise. In contrast, those who are evil-minded will not benefit from the teachings of the Banshin. One's tactics will not succeed if they are out of line with the correct mind, and the plots of those that misuse the teachings will be exposed. This, Yasutake says, is because a correct mind should come first. So what is this correct mind that Yasutake speaks of? Sensei Yasutake states that the Chinese equivalents of the shinobi ideogram were named as Kan, Cho, Saisaku, and Yute, whereas in Japan, the kanji shinobi is used because it has a deep underlying meaning that further clarifies the function of a shinobi agent. The kanji ideogram, designated as shinobi, is comprised of two parts, one meaning blade and the other meaning mind or heart. This ideogram conveys that the essential nature of a shinobi is one of strength, will, valor, and bravery, one whose heart is always under threat of the knife, owing to the dangers associated with their role in wartime affairs, and one who is patient, courageous, and persevering. We are told by Yasutake that the type of courage one should develop is not brute courage blended with rage directed at the enemy, but instead the courage of duty should be cultivated. For the courage of duty never gets tired, whereas the courage born from hot blood will. In other words, Yasutake is giving the student of ninjutsu the point of reining in one's emotions when engaging with an enemy. Brute courage may make you strong or hard out of temporary rage, but it is difficult to keep your mind strong and hard to the bottom of your heart as the rage calms down. As a result, you will not have foresight nor be ready to defend yourself fully, and you will only destroy yourself and will not ruin the enemy to any significant level. The text then turns to speak about the folly of being impetuous and allying yourself with those who are not afraid to die as a result of doing something stupid, such as attacking a tiger or crossing a river without a boat. A shinobi is advised to take sides with those who have reasonable fears and prefer the prudence of secret stratagems to fall the enemy. Yasutake then speaks of the principles of benevolence, righteousness, fidelity, and loyalty, providing a basic delineation of what these principles entail. Benevolence means comporting oneself in a way that exudes compassion, gentleness, kindness, and charitability. This does not mean that a shinobi will refrain from violence, however, for as is noted in the ninjutsu texts, it is considered benevolent if one slays a single man to save 1,000. Anyone who does not hold to the principle of benevolence, Yasutake says, should not be considered to be human, for benevolence is essential to mankind. The principle of righteousness is interpreted to mean doing what is right relative to the myriad situations one may encounter. What is right will change in accordance with the situation. The principle of loyalty circumscribes one's actions in service to one's lord. A shinobi must commit himself fully to the cause of his lord and missions the lord assigns. The principle of fidelity entails keeping a mind centered on truth while getting rid of anything false or wrong within one's mind. These four principles are the foundation of one's relationship to the art of ninjutsu. The wise keep these principles close to their hearts and are said to possess doshin, or the mind of principles, while the stupid are led by their own self-interest and desires and are therefore said to possess jinshin, or the mind of man, which is preoccupied with attempts to satiate the senses and give in to drinking, lust, thievery, and greed. Yasutake states that giving in to jinshin will ultimately drive oneself to ruin. Seishin requires the sedulous practice of observing one's own mind to understand how it operates and discern whether it is in line with doshin. One may find that jinshin, the mind of man, is constantly active and only a strict adherence to doshin will bring the mind of man into compliance with the higher mind. Once one gains experience and skill in adhering to the higher mind, the full essence of the ideogram for shinobi will manifest as self-restraint and patience. The success of an operation might depend in its entirety on the correct conduct of the shinobi no mono involved. This correct conduct or manner of behavior is essential to ninjutsu, for it constitutes the beginning of any attempt at deceiving others. This is to say that when interacting with others, a shinobi exercise an exterior comportment that could effectively conceal his or her heart. There is much that can be learned about the insubstantial inner world of an individual by studying his or her exterior. For example, the clothes one wears, place one lives, friends one keeps, and interests that one expresses conveys much about the inner personality of a given individual. The outer presentation of a person can be indicative of his or her inner dispositions. Shinobi understood this to the extent that they would willfully obscure their own inner world and thus retain their secrets by presenting a carefully crafted exterior character which belied the shinobi's true operational purposes. This concept was reified not only through simple disguise, but also through calibration of one's heart and mind to the complexities inherent in living as a double or even triple entity in thought, comportment, and speech. What follows here regarding points on the conduct and heart of a shinobi has been derived from the Yokan Denkai's Hoi no Maki of Iga and Koka shinobi traditions, as well as the Bonsen Shukai of 1676. The shinobi Momochi no Kodo advises the would-be shinobi that the most important thing to abstain from is dishonesty. This admonition is found in the Bonsen Shukai as well, wherein Yasutake asserts that dishonesty in speech will result in a lack of trust between the shinobi and the external world. If a shinobi cannot be trusted, then many plans that depend on the conveyance of a lie at the right time by an honest person cannot be implemented. A shinobi therefore needs to have the reputation of being an honest person. Therefore, those aspiring to follow the ninja's path should mark mendacity as a pitfall to be avoided. Many of the extant ninjutsu texts remark that honesty is a supreme quality to be developed within a shinobi. Chikamatsu Shigenori of the Renpai-Do School of War contends that it is difficult for a shinobi to accomplish his or her objectives through the use of martial arts alone. Military skills have their place, however much of what ninjutsu entails requires associating with various people from a variety of backgrounds outside of military culture. A shinobi who is skilled in martial arts might find common ground with those in the military culture, but the same may not be said when associating with poets, priests, and tradesmen. A shinobi is advised to learn as many arts outside of war as possible, for this will expand his or her repertoire and consequently social opportunities for intelligence connections. Music, singing, verse composition, dancing, writing, and other arts should be considered worthy of study. With enough practice, the shinobi will be capable of manifesting disguises that make use of his or her skills outside of martial culture. Du Mu, a poet of the late Tang Dynasty, wrote, "He who can hide disgrace or bear shame, that is a man." Many are encumbered in their paths to greatness by the fragility of their own egos. Bearing shame, suffering disgrace, or appearing weak when the situation calls for it is difficult for the prideful and egocentric. Regarding the character trait of humility, the student of ninjutsu is pointed to the story of Hanzin, who was the Marquis of Huayin. Hanzin liked to wear a long sword in his early years, and some street hoodlums who were convinced that he was a coward and simply wore his sword for show, challenged Hanzin to a fight. If he refused, he was to disgrace himself by crawling between the legs of one of his challengers. When Hanzin refused to fight and instead crawled between the legs of his challenger in shame, people laughed and indeed considered Hanzin a coward. However, Hanzin was insightful enough to understand that he did not want to ruin his future or potentially lose his life to street thugs for no reason. So he bore the humiliation of being painted a coward, but then went on to serve Emperor Gao of the Han Dynasty and became a great general that was never defeated in battle. This story reminds the would-be shinobi that losing sight of one's greater purpose can leave us embattled in contests of ego that may prove ultimately fruitless. This is particularly true of engaging in altercations with others for the sake of preserving one's ego. A shinobi exercises humility in all his or her affairs with others, recognizing that pride can be used as a weapon against oneself.